Welcome to the Career Changemaker podcast, where we focus on owning your career journey and making impact through the work that you do. Whether you're looking to pivot, transition into leadership, or reimagine your career completely, this podcast is for you. We'll unpack career development strategies, leadership insights, and the mindset shifts needed to thrive in your career. Being a career changemaker means taking control and shaping your professional path with intention. I'm your host, lawyer turned career and leadership development specialist, Janine Esbrand. So if you're ready for candid conversations that are going to help you grow, keep listening. Hello and welcome to the show. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about a topic that I think is really important but is often overlooked, and that is owning your value. When we are looking at career growth and you want to advance and you want to grow and you want to take things to the next level, one of the markers that we often use to determine whether we think we're ready is external validation. So that is you getting the promotion, or you getting that positive feedback from your line manager, or you getting validation from your peers. And whilst there is a time and a place for that external validation, that shouldn't be the place from which you make decisions around whether or not you're going to go for what it is that you want. Instead, the focus should turn inward and really you focusing on what is it internally that you need to work on so that you're ready, willing, and able to show up in a way where everybody else is really going to acknowledge what it is you're bringing to the table and the amazing impacts that you're able to make. So in this episode, we're going to break down how to identify your unique value, how to communicate it, and how to own that value so that you can really unlock the levels. And if you're ready to level up and you know that you've been coasting in your career for way too long, come on, let's dive into this episode. So firstly, let's talk about why is your career growth really linked to you owning your value? Well, there's external factors that we talk about, right? There's networking, there's skill development, there's you climbing that ladder. Like those are all things that are the practical elements that can help you to get ahead. But if you don't conquer the baseline internal voice and the internal perspective, the likelihood of you throwing yourself into the networking, the likelihood of you actually doing the skill development, the likelihood of you climbing the ladder diminishes. Because it's all well and good for someone to tell you that you can do this, you can do that, or you should be doing that. But if you don't fully lean into what you're already bringing to the table, it's going to be harder for you to show up with a level of confidence that is convincing to those who are making decisions or who are in positions of power that can help you to grow in your career. So career growth really, really starts with how you're thinking about you, how you're thinking about your career, how you're thinking about your ability. So when you understand, and when I say understand, sometimes I say, we say understand. If you have a certain background, you may have heard people say, you overstand? Like, do you overstand? Which basically means like understanding to the most possible level of understanding that there can be, right? Like when you understand what you bring to the table and you can communicate that effectively, things shift. I remember when I was deciding that I was going to make the shift from focusing primarily on supporting individuals to focusing more on helping organizations with career development, with leadership development, with talent management. And initially, there was some hesitation from me where I was like, am I really doing this? Like, I know I feel really comfortable in the space that I've built my presence and my experience so far inside of my business. And now I'm moving into something else. Like, can I really do this? And I had to go through a process of really breaking down the evidence and really looking at the backgrounds that I have and the things that I've done and the skills that I have developed, and really putting together a list of things that I have done that is evidence that I am able to do the thing that I want to move into. And looking at the results that I've been able to get for people was the thing that helped me to say, yeah, I've been bringing value. And because I've been bringing value and I can own that, I'm allowing myself to position reposition myself so that I can be focused in a different area. And I think that oftentimes when you're looking to make a move, there isn't enough time that is spent on really digging into what evidence do you have that you have what it takes. Often we focus on the evidence that we have that we don't have what it takes, but we don't focus on what we do have. It's always like, oh, but I don't have this qualification, or I just need this qualification, and if only I had that, or after I get this, I'll be ready. When actually there's probably experience that you're overlooking, that you're diminishing, that you could be leaning into, that supports the fact that this next move is a good move for you. And the reality is, whenever you're making a move, you don't have to have everything figured out. If you're going for a promotion, everybody knows that you haven't done this job before, because you're getting promoted and you haven't operated at that level before. So it's not always about what experience you have. It's also about, do you have what it takes to figure it out? And if you look back on your history and you look back on your career transitions in the past, you'll probably find evidence that you do have what it takes to figure it out. So in order for you to just lean into that value piece and own it, you need to identify what it is, right? So let's talk about what steps you should take or need to take for you to be able to identify, okay, yes, this is the value that I bring. Right. And when we talk about value, I just want to take a moment to address, sometimes people can talk about, in the context of asking for more money or negotiating an offer. It's like, you should own your value. You should get what you deserve, and you should, put yourself out there because you're valuable. And the reality is, when we're talking about value in this context, it's not about you as an individual. Right? It can't be about you as an individual, because you as an individual are priceless. Okay? We can't put a value on you as a human being. You are priceless. What we are putting a value on, when we say own your value, we're talking about what is it that you're bringing to the table that is adding value to an organization. What are you bringing to the table in terms of your mindset, your skill set, your experience, your perspective, that is going to help the organization to grow and advance towards their goals? Right? That is the adding value piece. Owning your value is about owning your contribution, owning what it is you've been able to do in the past and what you know you're going to be able to do in the future. So when we're thinking about what is my value, what am I bringing to the table, we are reflecting on your strengths and your contributions. So really thinking about what are the things that come naturally to you and also make a huge difference in your role. So often, because things come naturally, we can discount them as not valuable. We can discount them as things that, we just do them. But actually, when they are helping your line manager, your team, your direct reports, your organization, your industry to achieve goals quicker, faster, easier, you're adding value. So for me, it was my ability to listen deeply, understand complex business challenges, and then be able to connect the dots to offer practical solutions. I'm able to, my brain can take all of this information, synthesize it and be like, okay, this is what we need to do, or be able to break it down in a succinct way and articulate it in a way that is understandable. So I know that that's something that I have developed. And then I also know that that skill set is valuable in lots of different settings. And so now I'm able to talk about it. So for you, write down top 3 strengths that you have and how they've contributed to organizations that you've worked for. Oftentimes we go through situations or we go through exercises where we identify what our strengths are and then we stop there. But I'm encouraging you not to stop with, okay, I know that my strengths are being organized, being a good planner, being a people person, beyond what it is, let's talk about how that has contributed to organizations that you've worked with in the past. And so that can help you to see how they might help organizations in the future. So that's you reflecting on your strengths. Once you've done that reflection, it can be helpful for you to go out and look for feedback from others. And notice once you've done your reflection, so we're starting with you and then you can go and get feedback externally. And that external feedback is you looking for the patterns. So if you go out and you ask colleagues or mentors or friends what they believe your greatest strengths are and how you've impacted them or their work, they can give you a level of feedback that you might not be able to come up with yourself. And you can also notice the pattern. So if you ask multiple people and you say you ask 5 people and 3 of the 5 say one thing, there's a pattern there. And it's also good to consider asking people who are in different areas. So, right, like not all family, not all friends, like people from different aspects of your life, because how you show up in different settings can sometimes shift and change. So seeing what the thread is and the pattern is amongst different people is going to give you a better result and better feedback. When I first did this, I was super surprised at the patterns that emerged very, very quickly, even though I was speaking to people in different areas of my life. I asked friends, I asked colleagues, I asked friends from church, I asked people who I hadn't spoken to in a long time, and the patterns emerged and it was consistent. And so I was able to then say, okay, yes, these are strengths that not only do I know that I have them, but I am demonstrating them because other people can pick up on them. So that's what you want to do in terms of the external piece and getting that feedback from others. And then the last thing, step 3, that's really, really important, is aligning your value with the business impact, right? So understanding that business impact is what is top of mind for people. So when you think about your results and you think about, okay, yes, I have that skill set that allowed me to do this thing, or I had that skill set, I used that skill and it allowed the organization to do that. Take it a step further and really think higher level business impact. So when you think about an organization, typically, if it's a for-profit organization, they are focused on making more money, bottom line, growing revenue. But there's different things that impact that growth of revenue. There is mitigating risk, there is reducing expenses, there is making things more streamlined and more effective. So when you think about the result that you've been able to achieve because of the skill set that you have, what is the next step? What flows from that? What did that allow the organization to do in relation to the goals that the organization has? And I think this piece is often missing when people are talking about what it is that they bring to the table, when people want to command more money, when people want to command bigger opportunities. The business acumen and the understanding of what a business does, why the business exists, why the role that you do even exists is super, super helpful for you to be able to articulate where you're bringing in the value. So really think about that. Have you been considering how your role and what you do now fits into the bigger picture? And if you haven't, like, totally understandable. We're all busy. It's like head down, get the thing done, get the project over the line, onto the next thing. But take the time to notice. Notice why you've been asked to get involved in this. Notice why this is even a thing that's on the table. Because your knowledge and understanding of that means that you're able to do a better job of articulating how you've brought value to the table, and therefore how you'll be able to bring it in going forward. The communication piece is so, so important. We can be very, very modest and very, very humble. And there is a time and place for being humble, don't get me wrong. But when you're trying to advance in your career and share with others what you're able to do, that isn't the time for you to lean into being humble. That is the time for you to lean into showcasing the impact that you've made. Because you may be able to identify, I've done this thing and this is the result that I got, and this is how it's impacted the company at a higher level. But does everyone else see that? Have they noticed? When everybody's busy doing their own thing, have they noticed what it is that you've been doing and what you've brought to the table? And oftentimes people have not. And so you have to think about, how do you communicate your value in conversations with managers and peers? And that might mean that you have to ask for a conversation. That might mean that you don't wait to the next performance review. I remember when I was working as legal counsel, it was my first in-house legal counsel role, working for an oil and gas company, and I'd been working for 6 months. And as I'd been delivering projects and doing work, I was getting bits of feedback, but I didn't feel like I had a good sense of how I was doing. And so I spoke to the MD and said, hey, I haven't had a review, I really want to have a review. And he didn't understand. He's like, why do you need a review? Like, I've told you, we've been giving you feedback as you go. I was like, no, I really want to sit down and I really want to have a review. So I kind of forced him to give me the feedback that I wanted, because it was important to me to know that I was on the right track. I didn't want to get another 6 months or a year down the line to be told that I was missing a whole load of things or I hadn't been focused on the right things. And so sometimes it is you taking the initiative to ask for the feedback. People are not always going to offer that. And it's you taking the initiative to ask for the conversations and the time and the space so that you can share what's been going on for you. So when I'm saying about, sharing these things and really leaning into your value, you might be like, oh, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And that's totally understandable. But I want you to push past the resistance here and say, okay, if I don't tell them, how will they know? The number one reason amongst the amazing humans that I've had the opportunity to coach, them leaving their organization is feeling overlooked and undervalued. Overlooked and undervalued. Why? Because they have their head down and they are doing the most. They are doing the work. They are doing incredibly well. And they think that their work is going to speak for itself. And it doesn't. The work doesn't speak for itself because people are sometimes too busy to notice. So you, my friend, have to speak for it. You have to speak for your work. And if you don't, then they're not going to know. And so we can't get upset and irritated and angry about the fact that your line manager didn't notice that you did this thing because you didn't take the time to tell them. You didn't take the time to highlight it. So I know this is a bit of tough love, but sometimes it's not always the organization's fault. Sometimes it's the individual who isn't taking the initiative to say, hey, I want to let them know what I've done. So take some time at the end of every month or every quarter to reflect on what are some of the things that you've done and what do you want to make sure that your line manager or the head of department knows about, and bring it to their attention. It doesn't have to be in a braggy way. It can literally be, hey, I got some really positive feedback from X client based on the work that I did on that project. Just let them know the feedback is coming in because they may not know. So ultimately, when you shift from doubting yourself to really owning what it is you're bringing to the table, the level of confidence, if there's going to be a natural shift. And I've seen it happen time and time again when I've been working with individuals and they come in to coaching being like, I don't know, like I feel I don't really want to speak up. And then when they really lean into, because I'm that cheerleader, I'm that person who's going to be like, look, listen, do you realize all that you've done? Do you realize all that you've been able to achieve? When they lean into that and they realize the level of confidence, they walk a little bit with the shoulders back a little bit and the head up a little bit because they realize that, hold on, I have been doing that thing and I am that person and I can continue to be that person who is bringing value and I will be that person. So you can move differently and you will move differently and people will notice. And it's a subtle thing. It isn't a blatant in your face like, hey, I'm here, I've done this. There's just a subtle confidence that people notice, that energy is noticed when you walk in the room, that you gain when you really, really believe that you bring value to the table. This isn't a fake it till you make it situation because that doesn't always work. It's okay, I'm taking the time to really assess and understand what I have here. What do I have in my toolkit that I get to use and share with the world that's going to make impact immediately in my immediate circle and also in my wider circle? And when you lean into what that is, it's chef's kiss amazing. It's chef's kiss amazing. Like, just know that you having the value and delivering value is only part of it. You need to acknowledge it. You need to acknowledge it. All right, so that's what I wanted to share today. Let's wrap up with some actionable takeaways for you. So we talked about owning your value. We talked about how you need to reflect on your strengths and the contributions you're making. We need to get some perspective from other people. And then you want to be communicating the impact that you're making, right? And I want you to take the time this week to really think about what value are you bringing to the table. Owning your value isn't just about you, it's also about helping others and how you can drive meaningful impact in your role and in the business. So the more that you lean into what you know about what you can bring to the table, the more you're able to go out and do it and multiply it and expand the way that you are showing up and the impact that you're making. All right. So that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Remember that when you start owning your value, your career can really grow. Don't be waiting for that external validation. If you found this episode useful, or there's a nugget that you took away, or there's something that you're like, oh, that was good, I like that, send me a text message. We now have this feature. If you go onto your podcasting app, you can go to send me a text at the top of the show notes and send me a text and I can see it and I will be looking to read some of the texts that we receive in future episodes. So I look forward to hearing from you. But until next time, look after yourself and keep moving towards your career goals.